Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه من تبعه لا هدى لنا إلا أن هدانا الله. Okay, all right. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعه لا هدى لنا إلا أن هدانا الله. So I'm Gareth Bryant. I'm a chaplain by profession, and I'm here to speak about success. Success is a very relative thing because there's many different types of success and there's many avenues to success, and it's measured in many different ways. And what's successful to one person is not necessarily successful to everyone or another person. But one of the key things in terms of the acquisition of success is for you to really channel your skills, what you're really good at. One of the things that I learned in life is that everyone is good at something, right? And sometimes what prevents us from achieving success is that we think that we're not good at anything. And it's very important that you tell yourself that I'm good at something. And it's important for you to never allow someone to tell you that you're not good at something. Because sometimes people can be very mean and they can tell that to you that you're not good at something, which is a very negative thing. For example, by a show of hands, who knows what the word intelligence means? By a show of hands. Okay, good. So a very brief definition of intelligence is using your ability to think, to learn, and get something done, right? Now, by a show of hands, how many people knew that there's 9 different types of intelligence? There's 9 different types, okay? So that means that every human being has at least one type of intelligence. Every human being has at least one thing about themselves that they can use to expand their horizons and to get something accomplished and do something positive. So it's very important that you allow that to resonate within yourself, that you're good at something, that you're good enough, that you're smart. Everyone is smart in their own way. It's just that you're smart is not the same as that person's smart, or not the same as 100 other people smart. But everybody is smart in their own way, and that's from the mercy of Allah, because Allah has instilled this thing called intelligence within all human beings, which gives us the ability to be good at either a lot of things or at the very least one thing that's positive. So that's very important to note. Now, in terms of success, there are 3 specific things that every single person needs in order to be successful. There are 3 things. The first is what's called ambition. The second is what's called focus. The third is what's called drive. Ambition means that you envision yourself achieving something, or you envision yourself, you see yourself doing something. Like, for example, by show of hands, who likes sports? Who likes basketball? Okay, good. How many of you want to be a basketball player when you grow up? Okay. That's ambition, right? That want to do something, right? Now then you have to do the other thing, focus. Focus means that you make a plan, that you have a layout in terms of steps that you need to get that goal accomplished. So for the person in the back, the brother in the back, what's your focus since you have that ambition to be a basketball player? What do you need to focus on to get that accomplished? Speak loud. Keep practicing what? Keep practicing basketball. You said basketball, right? So that particular thing, if you want to do that particular thing, you have to focus on that, like you said, practicing, trying to get on a team, exercising, eating right, going to practice early, not getting upset when the coach doesn't give you like 15, 20 minutes to play, right? Discipline, right? That's focus, right? Like, for example, who knows what the word khushu' means in Arabic? The word khushu' means focus. That's literally what khushu' means. Like, when we're praying salah and we're focused on our place of prostration and we try our best to not let the shaitan deter our concentration, that's khushu', that's focus, right? So the ambition when we're praying, and this plays out in everything that we do in life, the ambition is to praise Allah, right? The salah is one of the ways to praise Allah, right? So that's an ambition. The focus is concentrating on what we have to do, what we have to pronounce, what we have to recite, where we have to prostrate, how to make the ruku', the sujood, the jalsa, all of those things properly, right? And then we need what's called drive. So drive is probably the most important out of all of the three things that I mentioned, because a lot of times in life when we're trying to get something accomplished, there are obstacles in our path, and there are things that are trying to pull us backward while we're trying to move forward. So when you're driven, when you have drive, the harder something pulls you back, you push forward that much harder. Like, for example, right? When the shaitan tells you, oh, this is too difficult, right? How many of you are good at math? By show of hands. Ah, you guys are real smart. I'm not good at math. However, when I was in school, that was literally my worst subject. Math is the only subject that I ever did in school that I was really bad at. And what's funny, what's ironic, is that some of my best teachers that I ever had were math teachers. But I was able to go to school, in spite of the fact that I wasn't good at math. I didn't allow myself to just fall by the wayside and say, oh, I'm not gonna go to class, I'm not gonna do my work. I had an ambition. My ambition was to finish school, right? My focus was to do the work, even though it was difficult, and my drive was, no matter how good at math I was not, I didn't let that deter me from getting my work done. So we need these three things in everything that we do in life. We need ambition. We need to be able to have foresight to see what we want to do, who we want to be. We need to have focus, and we need to concentrate and zone in and hone in on what we need to do, make a plan, and then stick to that plan. And the drive is, no matter how difficult it is to get that thing accomplished, that we don't quit. And that's being driven is the most important thing, because it's easy to say, I want to do something. It's easy to make a plan, but then once you have to live out that plan, once you have to make that plan part of who you are, that's where the real work comes in. Because anybody can just write something down and say, okay, I want to do this, and I have a plan. That's the easy part. The hard part then becomes walking in that path of what you want to do, right? So let me ask, who likes school, by show of hands? Who really likes school? Don't just put your hand up just because your teachers are here. Who really likes school? Okay, all right. So the reason why I asked is because oftentimes, sometimes when we're in school, sometimes we may have some off days, and sometimes we may not feel like waking up. Sometimes we may want to stay home, and we don't like school, right? But it's something necessary, because when you go to school, when you educate yourself, there's certain skills that you attain. There's certain skills that you're able to hold on to that help you in life, right? And even Allah speaks about things that we're commanded to do that we may not be pleased with. Like, for example, there's a verse in the Quran where Allah says, those who believe, pay attention. You have been commanded to fight even though you hate fighting. But perhaps you hate something which is best for you and love something which is worse for you. So oftentimes we might be in school and we may not want to go to class. We may not want to do the homework. But it may very well be that doing that work and making sure that we get good grades, that's the best for us. And for us wanting to pretend like we're sick and staying home, that may be the worst thing for us, right? So we have to keep that in mind. One of the important things about utilizing the revelation within the Quran and the Sunnah is that it's always applicable for life. Even though you may not be doing that specific thing that revelation displays, you're always able to take the wisdom and the benefit from that and apply it to your life. Like that particular verse, that's not an actuality for us right here, right now, but we can make it transformative and we can put it in our lives, even for those of us who are not in school, who have jobs. Sometimes I don't feel like going to work because my work as a chaplain, I'm in the hospital and I see people sick and I see people dying. And it's very difficult for me to go to a hospital to see someone sick and to see someone dying. It's something that weighs heavy on the heart. But what drives me to go to work is the fact that Allah put me in a space and place where I'm needed and where I'm able to bring benefit to people. Even though I'm not a heart surgeon, even though I'm not an eye surgeon, I don't do surgery, I don't patch people up and put people back together, but my presence is a presence of hope for people. So when I come into the patient's room and I'm able to just be present and be with a patient who is sick or dying, by Allah's permission, I'm able to fill a void or some type of emptiness that a person is missing and to help make them whole. And not just my profession, anyone's profession, because we're Muslim first. So everything that we do, we have to look at it from an Islamic lens. And we have to look at it in the context of, I'm doing this because Allah wants me to do this. And that's why it's always important to make sure that we do the right thing. Because when we're doing the right thing, that's part of the focus as well, making sure that we're doing something that Allah wants us to do. Not just something that we want to do, it has to be something that Allah is pleased with first. And then it could be something that we want to do. But the ultimate standard is we have to judge ourselves based on whether Allah wants me to do that thing. So regardless to whatever fields that you end up venturing into in life, we have to keep that at the highest pinnacle of if Allah is pleased with this. And then whether it's something that I really want to do. Not because your family wants to do it, or your in-laws want you to do it, or your tribe wants you to do it, or whoever wants you to do it. It has to be something that Allah is pleased with first, and then it has to be something that you want to do. And then it has to be something that you're really good at. Because sometimes, for those of us who are older, for those of us who have finished school and finished college, we end up going to school and we end up not liking what we end up doing in life because we didn't have the right priorities. So you have an opportunity now, before your life gets too complicated, to really map out and sculpture what you want your life to be like. And that's very important as well, because this life, before you know it, you're going to be my age, right? So who can guess how old I am? Yes. I wish I was 27. I'm 37. Yeah, I'm old. Yeah. Okay. So, guys, it's a lot of energy in the room. Okay, so with me being 37 years old, right? I've been on Earth for a while, you know, longer than like all of you, right? So within that, decades. So within that particular duration, that particular time frame, I was able, by Allah's permission, to learn a lot of things. And one of the things that I've learned is that time is really short. And we have to capitalize on all the time that we have. Like, the ages that you are now, before you know it, time is going to go by real fast. And before you know it, you're going to be like my age. But when you get to my age, you should be able to look at yourself in the mirror with a sense of accomplishment. You know, you shouldn't have regret to say, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have done better in school, or I wish I would have listened to my parents, or I wish I would have done this, wish I would have done that. You don't want to have those I wish I would have or I wish I wouldn't have type of mentality. So it's important that we map out and pave out our lives now. Like, for example, when I was growing up, one of the things that people older than me would always tell me that I really wish that they didn't tell me was that I'm the future, right? I don't like using that word, you're the future, because the future is too late. The future, before you know it, you're grown up and you've accomplished nothing, right? So I want to change that wording. I want to change that language. So instead of calling you all the future, I want to call all of you the present. I want to call all of you the now. Why? Because when a person is told that they're the future, they think that I don't have to do anything right now. I can wait till later. I can wait till later. And you start to put things off. And then 20, 30 years go by, and you end up being like old like me, right? And you end up not doing anything, right? So I want us to change this culture. I want us to change this language of how we view time. Because time is very, very short, right? So I want you to get this mentality that you're the now, that you're the present, that the future is now. And because your future is now, I want all of you to really map out what you want to be, who you want to be in life now. Don't wait until you get into another grade. Don't wait till you get to middle school. Don't wait till you get to high school. Don't wait till you get to college. Don't wait till you get your first job. Don't wait till you get married. Don't wait till you have children. Make your future now, because that's very important. It's very important for us to not to delay our accomplishments and not to delay our progress. Because people in my generation, we wasted a lot of time because we let people tell us that we're the future. And because we let people tell us that, we develop this mind frame that, oh, I don't have to do this now. I don't have to be a good Muslim now. I don't have to pray now. I don't have to fast now. I don't have to make Hajj now. I don't have to get a job now. I don't have to go to college now. I don't have to get married now. I don't have to do this now. I can wait till later. And then later came, and those things were still not accomplished. So I don't want that for you. I don't want you to have to wait 10, 20 years from now, and then you still not living the life that you want. I don't want you 10, 20 years from now regretting because you didn't capitalize on an opportunity because you let someone tell you that you were the future as opposed to telling you that you're the now. So I'm here to tell you that your future is now. So you need to take that seriously. You have to develop this mindset that your future is now and that your future is not later. That's very important. So remember these three things, right, for success. Ambition, meaning you see yourself doing something, right? The focus. You plan out what you want to do and how you want it done. The drive, you don't allow anyone to tell you that you can't accomplish it. If Allah didn't say you can't do it, if there's nothing in Revelation that says you can't do it, don't let anyone else tell you that you can't do it. That's your drive. And anyone who tries to divert your focus, anyone who tries to tell you that, oh, that's too difficult for you, or you can't do it, you can't accomplish it, ignore them. And with Allah's permission, ask Allah's help and get that thing done. And then also make sure that what you're doing is something that Allah is pleased with, and then make sure it's something that you want to do. And always remember, everybody is smart in their own way. So, I don't like talking too much, so I want to see if I can get some audience interaction. So, if anyone has any questions or feedback or comments. Yes, in the back, yes. Speak loud so everybody can hear you.
Do you have a job?
Yes, I do. Okay, as I explained earlier, okay, that's another good question too. So I'm going to answer the first question. The first question is, yes, I have a job. The second question is, what is a chaplain, right? So my job as a chaplain, chaplains work in various different areas. So you have some chaplains who work in hospitals. You have some chaplains who work in jails and prisons. You have some chaplains, yeah, don't go to jail. Jail is bad. Just FYI for your information. There are some chaplains who work in like high schools or that work in colleges. So I happen to be a person who works in hospitals and I work in jails and prisons. Okay, now, so the definition of a chaplain is someone who provides support and comfort to a person who needs what's called healing. Now, not healing in terms of necessarily medical healing or physical injury. It's more to do with a person how they view themselves, how they view life from their spirit, from their soul. So one of the monikers or one of the tag names or one of the kunyas of a chaplain is what's called physician of the soul. What that means is that we target what is internal about a person. So obviously we all, as Muslims, we all know that human beings, we have a soul, right? And sometimes things happen in life that injure the soul, that makes the soul feel bad. Some things happens that hurt the soul, right? So for chaplains, our job as chaplains is what's called, we call it hearing a person's story. So we allow a person to speak their piece. We allow a person to speak their mind and to speak about what's ailing them. Not just necessarily physically, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally. We allow a person to express themselves pertaining to what they think and how they feel. And we are able to provide them tools to come to their own human conclusions to make their own decisions as to how to go further in their life. It's a little complicated. But yeah, so basically I'm basically like a therapist. And to put it very, very short, I'm kind of like a therapist in a religious kind of way. So someone had yes, you had a question?
Why did you become a chaplain?
That's a really good question. Originally, I didn't see the value in chaplaincy. There's a Muslim brother, may Allah bless him, I mean, he introduced me to chaplaincy. And he tried to get me to be a chaplain for a long time. And I was dodging him. I was avoiding him. And then one day, Allah empowered me to make a decision to join this chaplaincy program that he ended up being my first supervisor in the program. And because of that decision, I was able to help a lot of people who were in a lot of like dark spaces and dark places in their lives. And a lot of people, they have a lot of stories and they have a lot of things that happen in their lives that affect them greatly. And some of them, they may have children and they may have issues with their children or with their parents or with their schoolmates, or many of them have been bullied and been picked on, and a lot of them have been involved in violence and all types of negative, problematic things that have affected their lives. And me as a chaplain, I was able to just be present with them and to hear what they had to say, and I was able to provide comfort and healing for those types of people. And it's a very worthwhile profession. So in the spirit of what the sister had mentioned about entrepreneurship, I know, I'm gonna get, yeah, your hand is waving. So in the spirit of entrepreneurship, chaplaincy is a profession that actually we need more Muslims in, because there's not a lot of Muslims who are chaplains. And chaplains are needed everywhere because people are hurting and people are struggling. And one of the great things about being Muslim is that we have guidance from Allah. So we're able to use our guidance from Allah to be able to help people who are struggling with many life challenges. Yes, sister in the front, you got a question?
What do you like about your job?
That's a great question. The sister asked me, what do I like about my job? Every day that Allah allows me to go to work, I'm able to make someone's life better. That's the best thing about my job. And I'm able to see the results in real time. Every time I go to work, there's someone who is struggling with something, and because of my presence in my work atmosphere, I'm able to give them hope that it's not as bad as it seems, or that they have the ability to move through the hurdles that they have in life. I want to get some of our youngsters in the back. Yes, in the chair, yes.
Are you married?
For the record, I really wasn't expecting that question. I need to answer one question at a time. No, I'm not married. No, I do not have children. Hey, shh. Yes, I have a job. Yes. Yes. Okay, wait, someone in the back had a question. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have siblings.
Guys, let's be careful. Guys, let's be careful about the questions that we're asking. He came with a specific message, and we don't need to ask anything about his personal life except things revolving around the job. So whether he's married or he's single, he has siblings, is irrelevant to the talk today. So unless the questions are directly related to what he came to speak to us about, I'm going to ask you that you put your hands down. What's your question? That's irrelevant to what he does outside of work is irrelevant. Whether he plays, so you guys are not getting my point. I'm gonna go with the bigger kids. I'm gonna actually go with the bigger kids for now. We'll come back to the lower kids. Okay, so 1 second. She wants a little bit of clarification about healing. 1 second, guys. Shh. She's saying, how are you helping with healing when their issues may be that they're physically hurt?
Okay, that's a good question. As a chaplain, my abilities are limited because I'm not a medical professional, meaning I don't have the ability to just prescribe medication or anything like that. So in terms of a person needing healing physically, I'm not able to remedy that at all.
Guys, please have a seat. Okay, Hiba?
What's your program called and how many years have you been working?
That's a good question. The program of my training is what's called CPE, and that means Clinical Pastoral Education. There are many programs for chaplaincy like all around the world and all across the country in the United States. My actual training took 2 years. So my first year in studying chaplaincy, I was a chaplain intern, and then I graduated to a level of residency where I worked in a hospital. Well, in my internship, I worked in a hospital as well. But I was accepted to a residency program which is paid, and it was a 12-month commitment working in the same place where I did my internship. And that whole process took 2 years.
Isn't it good for people to tell kids that they're the future? It allows them to elaborate on what they're gonna do in order to be successful.
That's a good question, but the reason why I specifically mentioned that the future is now is because this life is short and we don't have time to waste. And again, your future has to start where you are right now, where you're at right now. And this is why you have to focus, because one of the things in the United States specifically is that we don't challenge youth to think about their lives now. We only use what's called projections as to, oh, what do you want to be in 5 years, right? That's too long of a time. What do you want to be in 2 hours? What do you want to be tomorrow? No, you always have a choice. Because you have to formulate it up here first, and then you have to formulate it here. Anything that we want in this life, it has to start mentally, and it has to start spiritually. Everything that we want to do, you have to start formulating it from here. Don't wait till your college applications, you're doing it in high school. Let's say, for example, what would you like to do? Do you have an idea of what you would like to become professionally? You don't have an idea? Okay, so that's the first step. The first step, while you have the time now, try to formulate what you like, what you're good at. Because in your professional arena, these two things are going to be the most important. What you're actually good at, your aptitudes, and also what you like to do. Because a lot of times when people choose careers, sometimes they make the mistake of only choosing what they like and not what they're good at. And then conversely, they choose only what they're good at and not what they like. So ideally, it's important to do both. It's important to pick what you're actually good at naturally, pertaining to your skills, pertaining to your intelligence, and also what you like to do. Because oftentimes people have jobs and they're unfulfilled. And when you're unfulfilled in the workplace, your work quality is horrible. Like for example, in my field, I work in hospitals, right? I can see the lack of work ethic. I can see a person and their lack of commitment is present because it's not something that they really wanted to do. It was just something that they did for a paycheck. Like for us as Muslims, we always have a higher calling as to what we want to do. So everything that we want to do, even if it's just for a job or a career, the primary focus is to do something that pleases Allah and that helps ourselves get to the hereafter in an easy fashion and to help humanity and help the believers. So that always has to be the highest pinnacle. So when you focus on that being the highest pinnacle, with Allah's permission, you'll find something that you're actually good at and something that drives you, that you want to do. Yes?
Did you get to choose like where you do chaplaincy at, and why did you choose a hospital and prison?
That's a good question. The answer is that at the time I didn't have a choice at all. The program that I was introduced to was exclusively at a hospital. So I had to do my training there. I mean, they have facilities, they have other programs where they allow you to do chaplaincy in other places, but the program that I was in, it almost exclusively deals with a hospital setting or like in a nursing home setting where they have like injured people or the elderly, things like that. Huh? Oh, well, referring to the jail and the prison chaplaincy, that was a job that I applied for, and by Allah's permission, I got the job. So with jail and prison chaplaincy and healthcare chaplaincy, the training is the same. It's just that you have to, your focus has to be different because you're dealing with different types of people. So in the healthcare setting, you're dealing with people who are confined to their beds because of an illness, whether it be a psychological illness, some like emotional breakdown, or some anatomical, biological flaw or challenge. In jails and prisons, you're dealing with people who are confined because of crimes that they've committed. Now, healing has to be done on both sides, but the approach has to be different because the dynamics are different. Yeah.
Wait, what's the craziest story you've ever heard during your job as a chaplain?
Well, since I'm bounded by confidentiality, there's a lot of things about my job that I can't discuss. But what I can say is my very first day on the job, there was someone who ended up dying. And it was really like, because what made it very, not gory, but what made it very heartfelt is that I was the very last person that the person saw while they were alive. So the person was in the hospital and they were trying to revive the person, and I ended up having direct eye contact with the person, and then after that, the person returned to Allah. So that particular thing, that ended up becoming a regular occurrence, like on the job in healthcare. Like when you're a chaplain, when you work in healthcare, like death is a regular occurrence. So that's one of the things particularly that I really had to work on getting, not comfortable with, but dealing with, you know? So death is one of those things where we know that it's a reality because Allah tells us it's a reality, but when it happens, it's always this like uncomfortable feeling because as created things, like no one wants to die, obviously, but it's just something that you had to work through because sometimes it's very difficult, especially when the person's loved ones are there. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because one of the children of this patient, he came to me and he asked me whether or not the person is going to heaven or hell. I mean, like people ask those types of things, and the person was not Muslim. And the answer that I gave him was really the only answer that I could give him. I told him that only Allah makes a decision as to who goes to the paradise and who doesn't. So, but when a person asks that type of question about their loved one, whether they're going to heaven or hell, especially if the person doesn't die as a Muslim, as a Muslim, being challenged with that type of question, that's very difficult. Because we know what Allah says about people who die upon shirk, who die upon kufr, who don't die upon iman, who don't die upon Islam. So for a person who's not Muslim to ask that about their non-Muslim relative, that's a very difficult place and space to be in. And things like that happen all the time. So I would say that was one of the most challenging things about my job, that whole experience.
I have two short questions here from middle school. They want to know your work hours. Who asked about work hours? Oh, your work hours.
Well, basically, when I'm at Lenox Hill Hospital, I'm like on 24-7 on call. So at any time, like even now, realistically, I can get a call from them.
And I want to explain, that's what happened yesterday, because he was supposed to come, but you guys didn't know, and at the last minute, he got called in.
Yeah, literally, yes, that's what happened. Yeah, exactly. So things like that are a regular occurrence. So, yeah.
How long have you been working for?
In my field, I've been working, including my residency, I've been working a total, 3 years now.
What did you want to do when you rejected the thought of being a chaplain?
I really was unsure of what I wanted to do professionally. I was literally all over the place. I had worked at Muslim schools in Brooklyn before. I had done some nonprofit work, and I wasn't really as fulfilled as I thought I would have been. So fortunately, by Allah's permission, He led me to a space and place where I'm able to display my skills and my talents as a person. Because chaplaincy is about human communication. Chaplaincy is about meeting a person where they are and accepting the fact that they're in this specific space. And the job of a chaplain is not to try to fix a person. It's not like we're a surgeon. It's not like we're an anesthesiologist. Our job as chaplains is to help people see what their condition is through dialogue and to give them the tools to empower themselves to make their own human decisions about their condition. So the most important thing about being a chaplain is what is called rif, right? Compassion, right? This from Allah's name, ar-ra'uf, right? The most compassionate, the most tolerant, right? So this quality of rif, of compassion, right? Of tolerance, right? And this quality of rifq, right? Allah being ar-rafiq, right? The most compassionate, the most tolerant. Tolerance and compassion. These two things are the most important qualities that a chaplain has, because we're confronted with people with all types of conditions that are very unsavory, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of people, they'll tell you things that would make you angry, or that would make you very sad, or that would make you very concerned about their condition. And it's very important that you don't overreact to what they say. There's a lot of things that in our profession is called being the container of emotion. What that means is that a lot of times when a person is telling you their narrative, telling you their story, there's a lot of things that you have to tolerate, because they may be expressing things that Allah hates. They may be expressing things that are against Islam, right? I'll give an example. One of the patients I was visiting in the hospital, just randomly, he didn't know me, I just visited him. He was a non-Muslim, and he asked me, was I Muslim? And I said yes. And he just said, oh, I just want to let you know that you're going to hell. And internally, I was just shocked, and I was angry. And it really took a lot for me to not, like, lash out, right? And, like, my ego, the nafs of the human being. And I'm saying to myself, you're telling me I'm going to hell? Like, so and one of the important things is what Allah says in chapter 5, verse 8. Allah says, and never allow your hatred against any people prevent you from behaving justly, right? So this person who's not Muslim, who doesn't even worship Allah, is telling me that I'm going to hell, right? So obviously, me being a Muslim, my ego got riled up. And I wanted to say a lot of things that may have been true, but they were inappropriate, not just professionally, but also personally. So it took a lot of rifq, it took a lot of tolerance, it took a lot of compassion for me to sit there and to accept this verbal onslaught from this person. And these things happen all the time in chaplaincy. You hear things and you witness things that are very ugly from people. And you have to allow them to express themselves on their own terms. Because only through allowing them to express themselves on their own terms will you be able to help them. Because a lot of times people, the reason why they are ill physically is because of what's going on with them spiritually. Now, outside of Islam, they don't inform people of this, they don't teach people this, but we know as Muslims is that we have what's called the three anfus, right? We have the three dynamics of the human persona, right? Which is the spiritual persona, an-nafs al-mutma'inna, the psycho-emotional persona, an-nafs al-lawama, the physical persona, an-nafs al-ammara, right? So all three of these things are threaded and they're connected, and they define one another, and they complement one another, and they affect one another directly. So when you are emotionally compromised, it has an effect on your immunity, it has an effect on your health, it has an effect on your diet. When you are not in a good place spiritually, it has an effect on your emotional state, it has an effect on your anatomy, your physiology. All of these things are woven together. So as a chaplain, especially for us being Muslim first, we look at chaplaincy in our visits with patients, we always look at it from an Islamic lens, and we try to pinpoint at what type of nafs needs to be addressed. Sometimes with chaplaincy, only a nafs al-lawama needs to be addressed. Sometimes when we see a patient, only a nafs al-mutma'inna needs to be addressed. Sometimes when we're visiting a patient, a nafs al-ammara needs to be addressed. Sometimes all three, right? So it's very complicated and it's very complex in terms of how to deal with a person in their different space and place. Yes, she had a question. You got a question? You were waving your hands. Okay. No, it's not nonprofit. I mean, they do have nonprofit chaplaincy. So, I mean, I like to get paid for my labor, so that's why I'm not doing it for free. And there's nothing wrong with doing chaplaincy for free, because one of the things that I learned is that chaplaincy is something that's so necessary and that is so dynamic that even if you do it for free, even if you're not getting paid for it, it's still something that's rewarding. I mean, obviously this is what I've dedicated and committed my life to, so obviously I want to get paid for my labor, but there are certain times when I perform acts of chaplaincy for no charge. And the reason why is because the need is there, and is that important.
Okay, I have a student here. I'm going to take maybe 2 more questions.
Okay.
And then what we can do is end, and if they want to come ask you anything personal, we have that time as well.
Not too personal.
No. I meant just
You mean
come
like
up-
in like the profession,
yes,
the profession?
Yes. Here, sweetie.
How did your family and friends help you in your road to success?
That's a good question. Fortunately, the Muslims that I were around, and even my family, even though my family is not Muslim, they've always known that I was driven to do things that are positive. And when your family and when people who care about you, when they see you doing positive things, even if they think you shouldn't do it, or even if they may not agree with it, if they know that you're doing something positive, with Allah's permission, they're going to support it. So sometimes part of being driven is doing things by yourself. Sometimes you're not going to have the support of other people. And then sometimes your drive gets challenged. Sometimes the shaitan may come to you and say, look, why are you even doing this? Nobody's helping you, nobody's supporting you. But in spite of that lack of support, you have to support yourself, right? Just like when Allah says in the Quran about Ibrahim alayhi salam, that he was an ummah unto himself. Because at one point, he was the only person on earth who worshiped Allah. He didn't have any support from his family. So his drive had to be, he had to support himself on a human plane. Sometimes in life, it's like that. Sometimes in life, we don't have any human support except ourselves. I mean, that's not the ideal. The ideal would be to have human support of your family, of your friends, of your peers, what have you. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Now, regardless of whether that happens or not, you still have to be your #1 support. You yourself as a person. You still have to be the driving force for your actions. The reason why is because at the end of the day, you have to make your own decisions. So even if nobody is supporting what you're doing, you have to support yourself. So again, it goes back to the thing that I mentioned, that you have to be driven. Now, of course, it's great that if you have people supporting you, that's the best thing. But sometimes life isn't just like that. Sometimes you have to be your own supporter.
1 second. We have one last question here.
What kind of patients do you check?
Huh?
Oh, patients, like the type of people? Yeah. What you meant, patients? Okay, she's asking the type of patients that you counsel, that you help, the type of patients.
Oh, okay. So when I'm in the hospital, it depends on the need. So in the past, I've worked in hospitals where I see patients from any type of religion, whatever, any type of ward, whether it's like the psychiatric ward or any other wards like pediatrics, working with children that are sick in the hospital. At this particular hospital at Lenox Hill, they have a policy where they only have chaplains of particular religions visiting patients of particular religions. Like, for example, me being Muslim at Lenox Hill, one of my job descriptions is that I only visit Muslim patients. So that limits me in a very peculiar way in terms of being able to visit multiple types of people. But if there's a Muslim in like the pediatric ward where the children are, then I can visit that patient if the patient is Muslim, or if the family is there, what have you. So it really depends on the policy of the hospital. Different hospitals have different policies. So sometimes, relative to the hospital that you work in, there's no limits as to which parts of the hospital and which patients you can visit. And then some hospitals, they're very particular as to which type of patients from which different departments a chaplain can visit. Yes?
So one of the ways I kind of found Gareth Bryant is also because I know he's really big with poetry. Is it possible? Do you recite your poetry to like your patients? Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Actually, I have. There was actually a patient in my residency. The patient was a woman. The patient was female, and at first she was very ill, and then she recovered somewhat, and then unfortunately. She died. She took a turn for the worse and she died. And this had a very monumental effect on her family. And what ended up happening is that I had gotten pretty close to her family. And one of the things that I decided to do to help promote healing for the family is that I ended up writing a poem about the patient to the family. The family actually had the poem written at her funeral. I mean, they had it recited. They had it read at the funeral of this woman. And it was very touching to know that they did that. And just that small token of this poem that I wrote for the family of this patient, it was a great tool to show the goodness of Islam. Because these people were not Muslim, I was Muslim, but regardless of the fact that they were non-Muslim, I was able to bring this human quality of compassion and care to the people that I serve. So that was actually one of like my greatest moments in my career and in my field.
Can you share it with us?
The poem itself?
That or yeah.
I gotta look for it. It's gonna take. Hold on.
We got time. Okay, I found it.
guys got a lot of energy. That's great. Okay, so this is a poem that I read. This is the poem that I wrote for the family that I had visited that their loved one had died. The poem is called My Family and Humanity. No moments can prepare for that which can drive you to despair. However, when your family supports you, nothing can compare. It's never easy to discern between your joy and pain, but those by your side help us to survive and remain. When we are challenged, placed through great tests, our love for one another decides which of us is best. Your hearts joined along with mine, different peoples of similar design. Although different faiths and another hue, there's no contrast between me and you. Your happiness is my objective, giving you solace my directive. You mean so much to me, sharing your story openly. Always took me in as one of your own so graciously. I am here for you as you welcome me into your space. We're family regardless to us being from another place. I will always remember your kindness and candor, times we've cried together, our mutual laughter. You are from me, and I from you. My love for you is 100% true.
Sharing his experience and also giving us some words of wisdom as we all strive to be successful. So, what's one takeaway that we have from this lecture today? Sada, a takeaway means what can you take away and implement in your own life? Sada? Huh? Plan for your future today. Anyone else? Ayat? Huh? Never give up. One more from the lower grades who was listening. Ambition, focus, and drive. Thank you very much. Yes? Don't think about the future, do it now. Very good, guys. Thank you for being good listeners. 1 second. Inshallah, we're going to end. You guys will go with your teachers, but if there's a few questions, no personal questions, guys. It doesn't matter how much money he makes. It doesn't matter what his favorite car is. It doesn't matter what his favorite sports. If it's something related specifically to the talk about you becoming successful and things like that, then you may come up one by one to ask him. Other than that, I'm going to ask you to please join your class. But before we end, Ismail, we would like to present you this token of appreciation from the staff and students of Wellspring. Thank you, guys. All right, teachers, you may take your students.